All right, give me just a second to get everything set up here, guys. All right. Okay, so my name is Aaron Mitchell. I went to App State, got my undergrad there in sustainable technology. Graduated about 2 years ago, and I've been working up in Boone ever since, doing furniture making and woodworking and that type of thing. Then about 6 to 8 months ago, I was approached by one of my old high school teachers. He teaches a woodshop class down in Hillsborough, North Carolina at Cedar Ridge High School, and asked me if I would be interested in taking over for him because he's looking into retiring. He's been teaching for quite a while. So now I'm in this program. So I'm hoping to get the job down at Cedar Ridge High School next year. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Just want to give you a picture of who I am. Now let's get into the subject matter for today. So we're talking about CTE courses focusing on career development. So we've got three main objectives here that I'm going to be presenting on. So the first is how CTE courses focus on career development. The second is how, as teachers, we can help students learn for the job, so giving them real world experiences, or just conducting our classrooms in a way that is reminiscent of a job. And then the third is how to connect students to opportunities and resources, whether that be things offered by the state or personal connections to somebody who might be able to mentor them, just things of that nature. So let's get into the first section, how CTE courses focus on career development. So the first question that we really need to ask is, why is it important to connect CTE students specifically with career paths and opportunities? Now, this is a question that I think has a lot of different answers to it. Personally, I think that it is very important to connect students with opportunities and options for careers because of the nature of the field that they're going into. A lot of times with trades, you have people who have been doing it for a while that are able to mentor younger people coming in, because there's a lot of things that may not have a super specific guidebook, or there's a lot of things that you can really get ahead if you know somebody who can get you into a position where you're going to really prosper with what you're showing so far. So just a little bit of statistics on CTE in the state. So 98% of public school districts offered CTE last year. So it's a very prominent thing, and I think a lot of people tend to see CTE as something that's meant for people from more income areas or people that are from more rural areas, and that in the past has been the case, but it's really developed in the past few years into something that is I think very powerful and could really lead our trade industries through the next decade or so. And just it's our job as teachers to really pour into these students and make them leaders in the trade industry. So it says here that 73% of districts offered CTE courses, and students could earn high school and post-secondary credit while taking those classes. This is something that I saw personally going through the high school process. I had a lot of friends and even my brother and sister that went through CTE classes and also took classes at a nearby college or something like that and got college credit. I was not able to do that path, but it was very clear that this option to be able to give students the ability to work with students who are, their peers that are older than them, that are really starting to get into a field, it gives them a view of what's coming for them in the future. But it also gives them a step up, because then they've already got college credit for certain things if they decide to go to college. And it's just really good experience. So moving on to career development in the classroom. This is where the rubber really meets the road. So what does career development look like in the classroom? So first off, this is something that Um, really depends on how the teacher wants to present it. So some curriculums for CTE classes do include sections that require students to do a project that aligns with industry standard or learn safety standards that apply to industry standard. But really the development in the classroom comes down to the teacher and how they want to implement that. So I think it should really look like having options for kids to treat the classroom like a job, and we'll get to that a little bit later in this presentation. But also just presenting yourself in a way that is professional and expecting the students to do the same. This has been taught in this class. I know a lot of you guys that are in this class are also taking Dr. Adams' class, and that's been talked about in that class as well, which is having a very professional attitude, expecting students to treat their classroom like a job, and also just keeping things organized in a way that allows students to reach out and find other resources, whether that be professional resources in the area, whether that's through career development opportunities through the state, but just giving students options to really advance their options and what pathways they could potentially take in the classroom while they're still in high school, before they even get to looking at whether they want to go to college or just go straight into a job or go to trade school or things like that. So the second point here is explicit versus null teaching, and I've kind of already touched on that, but I think that null teaching is something that's very important when it comes to career development. So that means that just presenting yourself in a way that is cognizant of what will be expected of students. So, you can remind them over and over again that assignments are due or something like that, because they're still in high school, they've still got a lot of experience that they need to gain, but at the same time allow students to drive themselves, allow them to really push and say, okay, if I want to get extra credit, or if I want to get special permissions, or to be able to do certain things, I need to be able to set myself up to gain that. I can't just follow along. A teacher's not going to hand me that. I think it's important that students need to see that they are required to show some initiative, because that's something that is very crucial in the workplace. So now getting more into this concept of students learning for the job. So treating the classroom like a job. I already kind of started this, but there's some expectations that need to be clearly set. So students need to be expected to act professional. They need to keep language out of their classroom. They need to dress appropriately. They need to be on time, things like that. And the more that the teacher can set that expectation, the more the students will just automatically follow that, and the teacher won't have to spend a bunch of time disciplining and can focus more on the subject matter. Now, playing off of setting expectations, once you create a classroom atmosphere, you can start to tap into which students are naturally interested in the subject and which students are a little bit off, and then you can start to get to know your students and really figure out what motivates these students to learn about this. For me, I know, just an example, I took a CTE class in high school, the wood shop, and I was one of the people who was a little more naturally motivated, but the teacher there definitely took advantage of that, because he saw that I would be wanting more out of the lesson, or saw that I would be willing to do research on my own. And so he would feed resources my way on information on extra things, or say, hey, we're doing an extra session tomorrow, before school, for learning a little bit more about an advanced concept. And he would allow opportunities for that. And that was something that I just really dug into, and a lot of the other kids did as well, when they saw that it really could be enjoyable to choose to go and do your own track, because you got more personalization with how you approached your quote-unquote job, or your job in the classroom as a student. And I think this is something that does definitely transfer to the real world is if if you work harder in your job, opportunities are probably going to be presented to you. And then lastly, creating a professional environment. This is something that it goes a little bit beyond dress and appearance. It showing kids what it looks like to be prepared, showing them what it looks like to have a plan and think ahead, but also just expecting them, like I said, setting expectations, expecting them to treat the classroom that they're in like it's a job. So one thing that we can do to help kids along is connect them to resources. So something that's offered by the state is something called career development coordinators. And this little blurb right here is from the DPI state website. So I can say CDCs facilitate linkages with parents, business, industry, post-secondary institutions, and community organizations to support students' transition to post-secondary education and employment. So development coordinators can get in touch with students and really help them to connect to options that they're looking at. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll talk to students and say, okay, what's your direction that you're looking for? Are you looking to go into are you looking to go into a trade immediately? Do you want to go to a trade school? Would you rather go to a college? And whichever path they pick, whether it be one of those three or another one, the development coordinator can help reach out to those people that they have connections with, whether it be in like a college admissions department or maybe a college professor, find trade schools in the area that the student can look into. Like it says, really just facilitate linkages. I like that phrasing because that's what it is. It just creates connections that are really strong for students. And that's something that's offered by the state. Another thing that we can do is have local resources. So what that looks like is, as a teacher, maybe you have people in the area that that have a business in the subject that you're teaching. And so you can talk to your students, say, hey, I know this person, they could really help you out. Maybe you can swing by their shop and see what they're doing, or get acquainted with them and ask them if they have any maybe side jobs that you could do for them that would help you learn this material better. And let's see, sorry, I've got some notes right here. So in this area, when you're helping students connect, one thing that I've seen, at least from my experience, is I was connected to some local businesses, and just looking into how the local business owner had to manage their business based on supply and demand, and how they pay their people, and how they approach things, how they organize things. That was really helpful for me to see, and it gave me a much bigger picture outside of what I was just doing at the school. Now, for those of you who are watching, I do want to know, for those of you who are teaching right now, what do you do to encourage this kind of development in your classroom? Like, how do you connect students to career resources? What does that look like for you? So I'd love to see some of that in the comments when you guys are, saying what I did or what I can improve. I'd love to see what you guys are doing, and I'd really like to start a dialogue in the comments on what resources you guys have seen or would like to use in your classrooms to connect students to resources. So next section, really going to focus on that. So a big part of our CTE classes, and this is part of the curriculum that really is built in to help career development in CTE classes, is student organizations. So there's a lot of them out there. Some of the more popular ones or more well-known ones are the DECA, the FFA, Future Farmers of America, Skills USA, and other things like that. So what these programs do is they create peer relationships. A lot of them require students to go out, and there's meetups throughout the year or competitions. I was personally involved in Skills USA. and there was a pretty big competition in Greensboro, North Carolina, once a year. And it allows students to go out and see what other people of their age group and in their craft, or like what those people are doing. It allows people, or allows kids to see the level of professionalism that their peers might be having. It allows them to also see what other options are available. Because when for example, when I went to Skills USA, I went for the woodworking side of things, and there was a whole bunch of other trades there, whether it was masonry or framing or like cooking skills or things like that. It was really cool to see all of the other trades together in one place, and it gave me a wider horizon as far as what I knew was out there and what students were coming into these organizations. So it does also foster professional practices. So students are expected to hold a certain dress code a lot of times when they come to meetups or things like that. They're expected to pledges or go along with a series of events, whether that be through a competition or just having a meeting with minutes where you have a secretary or not secretary, but somebody that writes things down, really takes notes. So that's something that I think is very important for students to see the professional process. Because as much as we might try in the classroom, it's hard to perfectly emulate what a business or what a professional meeting might look like sometimes. And this kind of student organization involvement can really help students to jump into that and see that for themselves. ACTonline.org is something that lists all these student organizations, and it has a lot of resources for students there. So just a quick review to wrap things up. How CTE courses focus on career development. So that's in the classroom, and that can often look like having the classroom resemble a job. So this means professionalism, how you go about things, really encouraging students to work harder so that they can be promoted in a certain way, in the sense like they'll have some more freedom in the classroom or something like that. Just setting expectations and helping students to meet those expectations in the classroom. And we had the helping students learn for the job. So that's having kids looking towards where they're going to go, having them connected with the CDCs, the career development coordinators, and also local connections, just giving them options on where they can go once they leave high school, and really having them work on all of those connections and paths before they leave high school. And then lastly is the career resources, which is most heavily focused on in the North Carolina curriculum with student organizations. And I just wanted to finish off with this quote here. A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. And I think that this is just such a perfect embodiment of how teachers pour themselves into their jobs, and the more that they put themselves into the job and really invest in students, the brighter their light is going to shine for those students, and the better that way for students, their career paths, can be lit up. So just want to say thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing back from you guys.